They say you should never judge a book by its cover, and I guess the same could be said of video games. But back in a time before the internet, when you were trying to pick out a game, sometimes the box itself was all you had to go by. As a kid, I never heard anyone talk about the game Startropics on the NES before, and when you look at the cover, it doesn't exactly scream excitement. So I can't count how many times I passed on it until I finally picked it up because it was so darn cheap. Well, to my surprise, it turned out to be one of the best the NES had to offer, and one of the few great NES games you can still find for under $10. Let's take a look. Startropics was developed by Nintendo and released for the NES in 1990. The game stars the character Mike Jones. Not that Mike Jones, this one. Who, while on vacation, travels to Sea Island to visit his uncle, Dr. J. No, not that Dr. J. This one. When he arrives, he is met with the news that his dear old uncle has been kidnapped. So armed with a yo-yo and a submarine, Mike takes it upon himself to rescue Dr. J. While island hopping to search for clues, Mike helps the inhabitants with various problems along the way, befriends villagers and animals, and discovers the truth about the kidnappers. Aliens. The evil alien Zoda is the mastermind behind it all, using Dr. J to collect 3 mysterious and magical space cubes. Startropics is part tropical adventure, part sci-fi, with loads of humorous dialogue mixed in. When you first glance at the game, it immediately gives off a Legend of Zelda vibe, both visually and in terms of gameplay. You start each chapter in the overworld, and then you make your way to different caves and dungeons where you do battle with a plethora of different animals, monsters, and bosses. The main difference here is that the overworlds are a lot less about exploration. You follow a simple path to get from cave to cave, which is where the crux of the gameplay occurs. I really enjoy the linear format that this game takes because there is a much greater focus on the challenge of the caves themselves rather than walking around in circles figuring out where you need to go next. In the caves, you battle your way through what is again a fairly linear path. There are a few hidden secrets, but for the most part they are visible as long as you're paying attention. The controls can feel quite stiff when you first start, and you can only move in the cardinal directions. However, you really won't need to make any quick maneuvers here, as the game has a much slower pace to it, especially since much of the dungeon is built around fighting, puzzle solving, and finding hidden switches. Mike has the ability to jump straight up, or he can jump forward if it's to a square space, being able to jump one square at a time. There are sections that will let you flex those platforming skills, but it's more about timing the jumps rather than accurate landings, as the game will automatically land you centered on the next square. Mike's yo-yo is his main form of attack, which will fly out a few spaces in front and damage enemies. Along the way, you can upgrade the yo-yo to increase its strength and its reach. You can also collect sub-weapons like ray guns, baseball bats, and slingshots, but they can only be used in that particular dungeon. So once you leave the cave, the item is gone. Whenever you encounter a new weapon, the game makes it extremely clear on how you should use it by giving you a non-threatening situation to test it out in. Then, as you progress, the need to use the weapon becomes more necessary and challenging. This is excellent game design. Startropics does a great job of increasing the difficulty level by level, steadily building up the player's ability. It's never a walk in the park, and it's never overbearing, so by the time you reach the tougher levels and bosses, you'll be fully equipped to take them on. But don't get me wrong, you'll die. A lot. The game does look similar to The Legend of Zelda when you first start, and it even goes as far as using the exact same heart piece, but you'll find it really does have its own style. This becomes abundantly clear when you first enter a cave. The character sprites increase in both size and detail, and just look fantastic. In the overworld, the color palette is much more vibrant with lots of bright blues and greens. Very cheery, like all the islands you visit and the villagers that you meet. But entering a cave gives the game a more subdued color, which sets the tone of danger and the unknown nicely. The character and enemy design is also very well done, although I do have the feeling I've seen some of these baddies elsewhere before. I really like the look of Zoda, the Pirate Ghoul, Frappa, and especially the Bonehead. To round out the graphics, you are given some cutscenes in between chapters. Here you can get a real good look at the characters that Mike has been interacting with. After you defeat the final boss, you get to see Mike's adventure play out in images, and it's a fun endgame treat after a tough adventure. Along with an impressive look, Startropics has a real robust soundtrack. Tons of different tracks that mesh incredibly well with the game, giving you a lighthearted adventure feel one second, and then a gloom and doom end of day sound the next. There are plenty of songs that will get caught in your head, and it quickly became one of the most memorable on the NES for me. Startropics is an extremely underrated NES game, and I'm glad I'm seeing a lot more praise for it these days, because it's one of my top 10 for the system. With retro game prices only climbing higher and higher, you'll definitely want to snag a copy while you can still get it for cheap, and you can find one for just under $10. Thanks for watching everybody, and I will see you next time. And remember, it's all fun and games. Thanks for watching everybody, and if you liked that video, why not check out the video down below? I actually review a newer game, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Mutants in Manhattan for the PlayStation 4. And if you really like what I'm doing, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks again.